What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. As you guys can see, this is the first video on the channel, so I'm super excited to be here. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. It's been a lot of work in progress. So those of you guys that already know me from TikTok or whatever, you guys already know what I do. For those of you guys that are new to the channel, I'll explain to you what we're going to be doing. So on TikTok, what I used to do is people would comment whatever players they like, their favorite players or whatnot, and then I would do a video about those players. So essentially, you know, their childhood, what high school they went to, what college they went to, how they got to the league, all this other type of stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm also going to be doing a lot of updates on like football stuff or whatever, like whatever news, trades, or whatever's going on. I'll try to keep an eye out for that as well. So yeah, so if that's something you guys want to do, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and make sure to comment your favorite players so I can do a video about them. So that's it for the little intro. Now we're going to hop right into the video. So the first player that we're going to be doing on the YouTube channel is going to be one of, if not the best wide receiver in football. And I'm talking about none other than the cheetah, Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek was born on March 1st, 1994, and he was raised in South Georgia with his grandparents who gained custody of him from a young age. And growing up, Tyreek had to struggle with a lot of different issues. In a couple of different interviews, Tyreek mentioned how him and his grandparents were homeless for a little while he was in high school. So that's something that they really struggled with. Obviously, it's something that really stuck with him and something that he keeps close to his heart. That's a very important factor, and that's something that like really motivated him to become who he is today. So his journey in sports started in Coffee County High School, and that's where he started playing a couple of different sports. He played a little bit of football back then, but his main sport was track and field. Obviously, you guys know Tyreek. He's super fast, you know what I mean? One of the fastest players in the league. He was actually really good at it too. He almost broke the records for the 100 meters and the 200 meter races. And in 2012 at the World Juniors, him and his team won the 4x100 relay, and he got bronze in the 200 meter race. So he's valid, you know, he's valid. So as he was graduating high school, like I said, he had played a little bit of football. He didn't really have a specific position. He kind of played a little bit everywhere. He didn't really get any offers for football from big colleges, mainly because of his shorter size. He was like 5'9", 5'10", which is short for a football player. I'm 5'9", so it sucks. I feel him. When it came to track and field, there were a couple big schools that were pretty interested in him. So he had LSU, Alabama, and a couple others. So they wanted him to join the team, but unfortunately he didn't have the grades to do so. The advice that they gave him was to go to junior college, get a couple of his grades up, and then whenever he's done that, he can transfer over to college and then actually run for the team. So then he decided to attend Garden City, and over there he was doing track, and then one of his boys actually told him that he should start playing football. He wanted to try out for football. And honestly, that's probably the best decision he's ever made, because as we know, Tyreek is who he is today, and it wouldn't have happened if he didn't decide to play football that day. So in Garden City, in JUCO, he was cooking. I'm not gonna lie to you, he was cooking. He didn't really have a set position. He kind of played all over the field, you know, played wide receiver, he played running back, he took a couple of snaps here and there, he played punt returner, kick returner, he did a bunch of things. And he actually put up a really good season with a total 1,100 yards. And because of that season in his sophomore year, he got a bunch of offers from a bunch of different colleges, and he decided to commit to Oklahoma State. He had his first year in 2014 where he absolutely balled out. He had 815 total yards that season and 2 touchdowns, and he had some big plays as usual. But unfortunately, all that had to come to a halt because of some off-field issues. YouTube probably won't let me mention those issues or whatever, so I'm not gonna say it, but I'm gonna post. So anyway, he gets let go from the team, and at that point he was like, damn, I don't play football no more, and I'm not in school no more. So he went back home, and then that's when he got a call from Tennessee. He got a call being like, yo, Tyreek, we heard your story, like, you know, we're interested in having you on the team. And he's like, okay, bet. So obviously he's super excited, so he drives up to Tennessee, and this is the story that he told. So he drives up to Tennessee, 8-hour drive, and as he's getting to the city, he gets a call from the team, and like, Tyreek, like, we know your situation, we know what's going on, and unfortunately, like, we can't have you on the team no more. So obviously, he was upset. He was sad, you know, because it's like, they're the ones that called him to offer him the role. And then, like, as he's getting there, after driving 8 hours, he's getting to the city, he gets told the bad news. Like, he was upset. So he calls his grandma, tells her what happened. He's like, yo, like, honestly, like, I don't want to do this no more. I want to quit. So then his grandma's like, yo, like, don't worry about it. Just come back home. We'll figure it out. True story that he says. On his way back home, he's in the car, he's driving. The coach was calling from Western Alabama, was like, yo, listen, like, we heard your entire story. We know what's going on, but we want you anyways. So he joined Western Alabama and taken. He played the first game with them the very next day, and he was absolutely cooking that day. The coach did mention that he was on a short leash because of everything that was going on around him, but that didn't stop Tyreek from focusing on football and then balling out. He had 2 punt returns touchdowns on his first game the very next day after signing with the team. He didn't really have any set position like in JUCO. He was all over the place, right? But he still had some pretty great numbers. He had a total of 681 running and receiving yards with 4 touchdowns, and a total of 722 kick and punt returnings, also with 4 touchdowns. He qualified for the draft, but unfortunately, the one thing is there was a lot of uncertainties with him. A lot of people didn't want to draft him because of the situations that were going on in college. So a lot of teams didn't want to take that risk on him. However, there is one team that decided to take a risk on him, and that paid off for them incredibly. In the 2016 NFL draft, he was drafted in the 5th round, 165th overall, by the Kansas City Chiefs. He signed a 4-year, $2.58 million contract, I believe. He joined the receiving corps of Jeremy Maclin, who was his inspiration, which we'll talk about later on, Chris Conley, and Albert Wilson. And he joined some other pretty big superstars in Alex Smith at quarterback, Travis Kelce tight end, Eric Berry, Jamal Charles, Chris Jones, Marcus Peters. So Kansas City, they were up. You know, they had a pretty solid team at the time, and they still do. So Tyreek had mentioned that Jeremy Maclin was a really big inspiration for him, and he was trying to copy everything he did. He was trying to learn as much as he could from him. It actually paid off because the Chiefs went 12-4 that year, and they lost the divisional round to the Steelers. Le'Veon Bell cooked that game, but whatever. You know, that's a pretty good start to a rookie year. And he put up some pretty good personal numbers as well. He had a total of 593 receiving yards with 6 touchdowns, and in terms of rushing, he had 267 yards with 3 touchdowns. And kick and punt returning, he had 976, almost 1,000 yards in kick and punt returns with 3 touchdowns. So it's safe to say that he had a pretty good rookie year because he got selected to the Pro Bowl and to the first team All-Pro. Now during the offseason, that's when Jeremy Maclin got let go by the team. Tyreek Hill kind of became their #1 receiver at the time. He doubled his receiving yards that season. He totaled just under 1,200 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns, and he finished 7th that season in terms of total receiving yards among some big names like AB, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, big names like that. He had a great season, great second season. They managed to make it to the postseason on his second year as well, but they ended up losing in a wild card to the Titans. Now this is where things start to get even more interesting. It was during that offseason that Patrick Mahomes got drafted 10th overall in the first round, and it was also during that season that they traded Alex Smith and Mahomes was named as the starter. So that's the beginning of the Mahomes era that we know today, that we both hate and love, and that was definitely a game changer for Tyreek Hill. He started the game on fire. In his first possession, he scored a 91-yard touchdown return on a punt, and he finished the game with 169 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And that was an indicator of how his season was going to go that year because he went off. In fact, in the 11th game of the season, he scored over 200 receiving yards. I think it was 215 with a couple receiving touchdowns as well. He finished the season with 1,479 receiving yards, which was a franchise record, by the way, accompanied with 12 receiving touchdowns. He also ran for just over 150 yards with a rushing touchdown and 213 yards on punt returns. Now they were able to make it all the way to the playoffs this year as well. They made it to conference championships, but unfortunately they lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots, who ended up winning the Super Bowl that year as well. Like I said earlier, he had a record-breaking season for the franchise, and he finished 10th in MVP voting that year. But unfortunately that season, Tyreek was struck with more controversy. This is what happened. You guys probably already know, you guys probably already heard about that. The allegations weren't proven to be true, and a lot of people don't think they're true. Other people that don't like Tyreek, don't like the Chiefs, obviously they're gonna slander. So there's no concrete evidence of what exactly happened, but that's that. So the 2019 season did start off too good for him because he dislocated his shoulder in week 1, and he ended up missing 5 games because of the injury. Despite that, he was able to come back, and he made a pretty good comeback, and the Chiefs made a really good comeback. He ended the season with 860 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns, and it was during that year that Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes won Super Bowl 54 against the 49ers. So fast forward to next season, 2020, that's when lockdown was happening, so it kind of affected the game, but didn't really affect Tyreek's game because he was cooking. He got off to a pretty good start, and then by mid-season, he started to really pick up. He had 3 back-to-back 100+ yard games, including over 250 yards and 3 touchdowns against Tom Brady and his new team, the Buccaneers. Now again, the Chiefs had a great season. Tyreek Hill had a great season, and they managed to reach the Super Bowl again on back-to-back years, and this time they faced off against Tom Brady. It was a rematch of the game they played in week 11, and unfortunately they didn't have the same result. It was a blowout, and Tom Brady got a Super Bowl with the team. Now 2021 was a super significant year for Tyreek Hill and for the Chiefs. He started off the season on fire like usual. In week 1, he had 197 yards, just under 200 yards against the Browns, and then in week 4 he had over 170 receiving yards against the Ravens, I believe. Against the Eagles. In 2021, he ended up breaking the franchise record for most receptions in a year with 111 receptions. Obviously, the Chiefs were good enough to make the playoffs that year, and that led to, honestly, one of the most amazing games, I think, in football history. And it sucks because, like, I didn't watch the game personally, so I had to watch the recap, and when I watched the recap, I was like, nah, there's no way. So I can only imagine what it was like watching it live. It must have been crazy. But anyways, I'm talking about the Chiefs and Bills divisional game where the Chiefs won in overtime in a crazy game. Tyreek had 150 receiving yards and a touchdown, and like I said, the Chiefs won the game and they ended up moving to the conference championship. That was a crazy game. If you guys haven't watched it, look it up on YouTube, watch the recap or whatever. Crazy. So they were able to move on to the conference championships, and this was the 4th time they made their appearance in a row. But unfortunately, they ended up losing the game to the Bengals in overtime, and Tyreek Hill was held to just 78 receiving yards. Now with the offseason underway, this is when everything changed for the Chiefs and for Tyreek. Tyreek Hill got traded to the Miami Dolphins. Now Tyreek has spoken about this before. He's been pretty honest about it, and he was just explaining how, like, honestly, he just felt like undervalued in his last season in KC. He wanted to be more involved in the team, which he felt that wasn't the case in the last season. from his perspective, you want to take care of your family, you know what I mean? You want to take care of everyone. You want to make sure to bless them, you know? So putting in the performance that he did year in, year out, you want what you're deserving of, you know? You want more bread. So that's what he wanted. He just wanted more bread. What solidified that thought in his mind was watching Devontae Adams sign a crazy deal with the Raiders. So he wanted something similar, you know, like he felt like he was deserving of it. And honestly, he really was, because in my opinion, he was top receiver in the league at the time, and he still is, especially now, you know what I mean? So they wanted that kind of money, but unfortunately the Chiefs weren't trying to give it to him. And although Tyreek Hill was very explicit on the fact that he wanted to stay in Kansas City.
You know, Tyreek wanted to be in Kansas City.
That's you say that again. Tyreek wanted to be in KC.
Wanted to be in Kansas City.
Wanted to be in KC, man.
You know, and obviously like that didn't work out or whatever. So then that's when he got traded to the Dolphins, and he signed one of the biggest contracts in NFL history. He signed a 4-year, $120 million contract. And when he signed that contract, he became the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. So Miami just became scary. They had Tua at quarterback, super good quarterback. You know, like he gets a lot of hate, but I think he's good. Waddle at wide receiver. So Waddle and Tyreek duo, crazy. They had Raheem at running back, Xavier at cornerback. Like the team was stacked. I'm not gonna lie to you, the team was stacked. And they played accordingly, to be honest. So following year, first year in Miami, he cooked. In his second game, he got 190 receiving yards with 2 touchdowns. Now taking that was his second game with the team, bro. Like that's crazy. Then same thing, game 4, he had over 150 receiving yards. He had 160, if I'm not mistaken. 4th game of the season. So he was balling. He ended the season with a new career high, over 1,700 yards. I think it was 1,710 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns to accompany that. But unfortunately, they did lose the playoffs. They lost in a wild card to the Bills. Tua was hurt during that game, so he wasn't playing. So they started this guy called, I'll be honest, I don't know what his name is. Started a guy called Skylar Thompson. I don't know who that is, but apparently he didn't do too good. He went 18 for 45 with 2 interceptions. It makes sense. Like no diss, you know, like I'm not trying to diss, but like it makes sense. Anyways, no diss, my fault. So fast forward to the offseason. Miami had a good offseason that year. They re-signed a running back, which was a really good idea because following season he went off. And then they went and acquired Jalen Ramsey at cornerback. So Miami was balling. Like their team is getting stacked. And honestly, it was during this season that just passed, 2023, that Tyreek had the best season of his career by far, hands down. And it's crazy because he's had a few really good seasons, including the one right before his first season in Miami. He went off, and then the season that just ended, he went even crazier, which is like, how? So hold on, let me read y'all some stats, bro. He had a total of 8 games where he went over 100 yards, and take in 5 of those games, he went over 150 yards. And you know what's crazier? Week 1, first game of the season, he had 215 receiving yards with a receiving touchdown. They started as one of the hottest teams in the league this season. Through 6 games, they were 5-1. Unfortunately, they weren't able to carry that momentum as they lost to the wild cards. Funny enough, against Tyreek's old team, Kansas City Chiefs, and Tyreek was held to only 62 yards. Despite that, Tyreek had an amazing season. He finished the season with 1,799 receiving yards and 13 receiving touchdowns, and he's currently in the MVP talks, although he's not gonna win it. And honestly, he could have broken the single season receiving yards record. He was on track for 2,000 yards, and honestly, I really think he could have gotten it if it weren't for injuries. I think he injured his ankle this season, and then there were a couple other injuries on the team which slowed all of them down, so they weren't able to just finish the season how they started, finish the season how they wanted. And that's one thing people mention all the time when they're talking about Miami. It's like, yeah, they're a good team, and like they've proven that they're amazing, but it's like they don't have that clutch finish. They don't have that clutch element. They always start the season on fire, and then they kind of slow down, and then they get a bunch of injuries. Tua's been injured a couple times, couple concussions or whatever. But aside from that, they're a really good team, and it's like once they have that chemistry developed even more, they'll be able to do crazy things. But yeah, like honestly, like I'm looking forward to next season because Tyreek is gonna go crazy. Honestly, I think it's safe to say that Miami won the trade. Tyreek is a great addition to the team. He fits in with their system really, really well, and he just proved it time and time again that he's the best receiver in the league. So let's just see if they can keep that momentum going. You know, best of luck to Tyreek and the rest of his career. You can rest assured that they're gonna be putting in crazy work this offseason. This guy's work ethic and like training is actually crazy. He actually has a YouTube channel, so he posts a lot of his workouts or whatnot on his channel. So if you guys want to check it out, Tyreek Hill on YouTube, he posts a lot of videos like vlogs or whatnot, like workout videos, this, that. So it's like actually really cool to see, like seeing this guy's work ethic and the work that he puts in to be in the shape that he's in and to be able to develop his skills or whatever. It's impressive, you know? So check that out if you guys want. That's the story of Tyreek Hill, you know, from humble beginnings, a lot of controversy. He did have to battle a lot of things to get to the point where he is right now. He just persevered through all his issues. He says time and time again, he's a really big family man, and like everything that he does for his family. So he's super super grateful, and it's honestly great to see him in a position where he can help them out and he can offer them the world. Moral of the story, even if you're going through adversity, keep pushing, you're gonna make it eventually, and just keep the people that you love close to you, and then you'll be able to do anything you want. Not trying to be too corny, you know, but it's a true message. It's a true message. Take that to heart. That's gonna be it for today's video, so make sure you leave a like. That way your player can get featured on the next video. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.